Sure. I'll talk it out.
Yeah, let's just have a conversation.
Track 3.
Better not be fucking Dave Matthews Band.
Okay. Those of you who don't want to be a part of this can leave now.
Derek, please listen to me.
But if you choose to stay, which it seems like you guys are choosing,
Derek, please.
you understand and agree to the following terms and conditions.
Derek!
1.
Derek, this is the virus
You
talking.
hereby waive your right
Derek, please.
to your own personal bodily integrity.
This is not you.
2.
I'm a life.
Per the State versus Neville Reed, my colleague and I will not be held criminally liable for any felony or misdemeanor that you may be a victim of, including, but not limited to, aggravated assault, aggravated battery, disorderly conduct, destruction of property, mayhem, and first-degree murder. And 3, terms and conditions may change or be updated whenever the fuck I want! Consider yourselves notified.
Whoops. Didn't have us ready to go there.
I guess not.
It's been that kind of day. Welcome to the second episode of Global Unscripted. And I'm here with my partner in crime, DJ Neko.
Got my Noma shirt on.
Yeah, sporting some mall.
I'm fixing my bangs as I always do. I always get like really self-conscious about how I look. And he's always like, "Oh, you look so good. You look so great." And I'm like,
fine.
Today when we were at the doctor place, the lady, when she was taking on my intake, she's like, "You're so pretty." And I'm like, "Oh, thanks."
See?
I know.
I'm so pretty.
I'm so pretty.
So anyway, today's topics, we're going to cover everything from how the media affects all of us in 2024 as compared to the old days, because some of us are old like me.
I mean, even like I don't consider us old, but
yeah, we're not like
we're middle.
boomers.
Yeah, we're like middle age. Like we're firmly in middle age, and he's definitely Gen X. I'm the very end of Gen X since I was born in 1980, and they always kind of said like this. The Gen Xers were just like the whatever kind of people. We're just like we were the feral children where we all were latchkey kids and we came home whenever we wanted and we had walk to school and back and it's just interesting because if you think of it in the grand scheme of things, like 40 and 50 years is really not that long, but to see how different things were for us as kids as we are seeing like today with the media and with schools, etc., it's really not that long of a time period to see how different things were. And everybody always says it like, oh, things were so different when I was younger. But I'm happy he brought me along to talk about this because I was kind of thinking about how different things are. And go on. I'm sorry. I always railroad.
Then we're going to get into the Miska Mitch Jones drama, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, you're going to have to give some backstory for our listeners.
And then the last topic will be about a particular porn star. It may not be her. She may not be the only one that thinks this, but some of the stuff she says regarding her boyfriend and what she expects out of the relationship is going to be kind of not really controversial because it's not really affecting the rest of us, but it's just something that's a bit odd. And I thought it was kind of interesting to talk about, but I have a lot more to say on that as well because of the podcast that it appeared on and everything else.
Oh, interesting.
But yeah, we're getting to the media. So, you and I were kind of talking about it before how, back when I was young and a teen in the 80s, like, you had the news, mainstream news and newspapers. That's how we got our
I felt
news
like the news was the news. Like they reported the facts, and it could be just I was young and that's just what I expected. But
Well, I would say for a good long while, like even through the 90s, the news seemed far more credible. They did more research, they did more fact checking, and then all of a sudden after 2000, things got a little bit wanky. And as the internet started to spawn, like
it's like everybody had to be first, so they just
that
posted
and
whatever on the internet.
misinformation
Yeah.
started really becoming on the rise, and it's gotten a lot worse over the last 10 years. And so one of the things that's been one of my talking points regarding anything almost, especially when Nick and I was discussing the Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing, was just how crazy, even on something so minor in terms of like everyone else's business, like it was Amber Heard's and Depp's business, but it was a trial that was put on live TV, so you're able to watch the facts unfold and the drama. And so
And they're
there's
famous people, so everybody
well,
wants to watch and everybody
but then
is
you saw like people deliberately like misrepresenting what was happening in a trial. So on one hand, you had people saying, well, the UK allowed certain facts in the Heard case there. The problem is with that was the UK was Johnny Depp suing the Sun. It wasn't him suing Amber Heard. But what happened was Amber had to testify for the Sun because that's who they were basing their comments on when they called him a white beater.
oh my.
So the reason why Johnny Depp could sue her for defamation in America was because she outed herself when she testified on their behalf. So even if she didn't put his name in the op-ed, which we know later on she actually did mean him, but she didn't put it because her lawyers advised her not to, which was smart. But they didn't advise her to not testify with the Sun because that would expose her for doing that. But then you just had people like different journalists or columnists come out and saying, well, the social media is really blasting Amber Heard, and they're taking Johnny's side, and then like it was the whole argument about, well, these law tubers, like, what do they really know? Like, they're not real journalists. And it's like, well, they're about as much a journalist as you are. And then they were complaining about law tubers and these YouTubers that were streaming getting paid, monetized for their content. And I'm like, well, if you're a columnist, you get paid to report news.
Exactly, and some people that's what they do. That their job is to stream on YouTube. Like this is a sort of a job for us, even though the compensation is not there. But for some people, that's how they make their main living. They get the money from streaming, and the law tubers, most of them were lawyers.
Yeah,
they were lawyers.
They're all
giving,
lawyers.
They were giving like their opinions based on a law degree.
Yeah.
So maybe they're not columnists, but they're lawyers who are interpreting the law so that we can all like understand it.
It's still, we talk about freedom of speech. So you have your right to your opinion. So from a law perspective, they can comment on that stuff. And even for someone like us, we did a video a while back on this.
Yeah, and we were just given like our opinion based off of the facts of the case.
Yeah, and the reason why I can speak so
he was obsessed with the
certainly
case,
about this is, yes, I was following that trial from day to day, like literally following it.
And the one trial, because it, like you were saying, it was broken up. Like there was a trial in the UK, there was the defamation case, but it was kind of close to here. It was in Northern Virginia. It was quite a media circus.
Yeah, it was. But that was just one case where I saw like there's like this division because individuals like Kat Tenbarge or Taylor Lorenz like were basically calling out these YouTubers and saying that they were purposely trying to get people to harass Amber Heard, or that they didn't have the facts, like Johnny Depp was still a beater. Like these columnists, as I keep putting in quotes because I really don't consider them, like this is where we're going to be getting into like how credible are they really, because they have their own agendas, is that nothing that these ladies did coincided with what the facts of the trial provided. So even if I came out of the trial, which I did, I said, it's a possibility that Johnny Depp could have abused Amber in some way. Problem is, the facts that were provided did not back up anything she claimed. She didn't have any facts to back it up. In fact,
Or any evidence.
evidence. And so the evidence that was provided actually told a whole different story. And it said that she was the one that was actually abusing him. Now, you can sit there and say, well, was she really physically abusing him? You know, who knows?
She was shitting in his bed. She cut off the tip of his finger.
Yeah, right.
Like,
And
I
so,
mean,
and then, but
is
even,
that
even,
not enough?
but even like the manipulation and the mental abuse, like
Mhm.
that's still abuse. And
That's
so,
mean.
and so the thing is, like, listening to Taylor Renz or Kat Timbars try to twist these facts, and because they all had their own agenda, they tell you straight up, these are women that are, I don't like grouping all feminists together, but these are strong, opinionated feminists, and they clearly have some sort of agenda driven bias. And so they to me, they weren't coming at this at all objectively. They kept trying to spin it into like the Britney Spears stuff. And I'm like, that case has
It's
nothing to
completely
do with this
different.
one.
It's a
Right.
completely different scenario too. Brittany was in a conservatorship under her father. It was not a domestic abuse case like Amber Heard and Johnny Depp. I mean, granted, you can look at both sides and say, well, it is domestic, because her father is taking over her money, et cetera, et cetera. But it's completely different. This is a domestic abuse case that one person, whereas Brittany was trying to have access to her own funds and her own business and to not have to like follow her conservatorship rules, since she was like, I'm way beyond the need of a conservatorship now that I'm 42. So like,
Right. And but that was the thing. Even like I was happy when I saw women get on social media that were actually domestic abuse victims stating that Depp was actually the one being abused. Like they were coming out and saying this. And so,
I'll just put this out there. It was the most unhealthy relationship in the
oh
world.
yeah, no matter way you spin it, like no matter which side you fall on, like that was just the most unhealthy relationship all the way around.
And the fact that they always recorded their fights, if you have to record your fight and you're telling your spouse,
But you know what?
I'm
That's the
recording this.
smartest thing he ever did because that saved his ass.
I think you're right. It did, because
I think what was happening was,
people are very quick to just blame the man.
well, that's what happened after 2016 or 17 when she first came out with her piece. Johnny Depp lost jobs. Now they tried to argue that he was losing it due to other reasons, but you can almost say even if Depp lost work because of his addiction to alcohol and drugs, that could have been a catalyst from her shit. Like that could have been something that sent him in a downward spiral.
Well, if your personal
So
life is not
technically,
going
she's
great,
still guilty of him losing
Yeah.
work because she's the reason why he fell into these hard drugs and whatnot. Just speculation on my part, but I can make that argument. This is the other thing that I always found interesting about the Taylors and whatnot.
okay, that's what.
So they would come out in their tweets and stuff, and they would say,
Now, which one is this?
"What's that?"
Which
It's either Taylor Lorenz or
Okay,
Kat. Both of
sorry.
them came out together, but they would say that when the evidence started unraveling, that you had Amber on Voice saying, "Yeah, go ahead and tell the world, Johnny. No one's going to believe you."
That's awful.
Right. And so they would sit there and go, well, then they start writing pieces like, well, Amber's not the perfect victim. So,
Oh, not the perfect victim.
yeah. So then they start arguing
you
that,
can't just be a victim. Like,
well, here's where their logic fails. And this is the whole point of this whole episode is that we have three different things where people's logic it goes beyond opinion. It's more like the logic you're presenting is not legit, like it's failure and it's not critical thinking. And so when they say Amber is not the perfect victim, okay, you're going to run with that logic or that theory. The problem is I can make that argument for Johnny Depp. Why can't he be the imperfect victim?
exactly.
So I kind of, obviously someone will argue the power structure or whatever, but I'm not buying that. I never have. I thought that's kind of a ridiculous thing. In some cases you might be able to argue that, but Johnny Depp's not one of those guys. And in fact, they proved it in the trial. when they tried to go with the Kate Moss shit and everything else. It just fell apart for Amber. And if you want to blame incompetence on her legal team, fine. They weren't very good. I'll give them that. They used the wrong reasoning, and they tried to use the UK shit, and the judge in America said, "Get the fuck out of here with that shit," because they have a whole different system of what constitutes as evidence in their own country. So, and again, it wasn't against Amber, so Johnny couldn't even submit his own shit. Like, it was just whatever Amber said went.
That's insane.
And very scary, because if you're in the UK, I can sit there and say, if you and I are in the UK, all I have to say is, well, she raped me. I don't need any evidence. I just got my two buddies who weren't even there, but they say she did it. And that's good enough. Like, that's the kind of shit that you're going to get in the UK. Okay. America doesn't play that shit. You got to actually have cold, hard facts.
Evidence.
Evidence.
Maybe create like a timeline from eyewitness accounts. It's hard because you never want to like just not believe a victim.
Yeah.
We don't want to not believe a victim, but you also have to think about there are other lives at stake too. So that's why there are like rape kits. There are like, they go and they try to, the police will try to put a timeline together. But we've also seen on the flip side where women who have reported rape or abuse, depending on who they claim their abuser was, that they have been forced or coerced by the police to lie and say that they were lying about their account, because these men were high up type of people. They were either politicians or someone important that the police didn't want to get involved. And we actually just watched a whole documentary on that, where these women were actually going to jail because of false rape claims.
And so
that's why I'm saying, yes, you can't, it's not good just to go off of claims. That's why there needs to be facts, evidence. You have to make sure you get a whole account for the evening, try to see if there are people who saw anything, get video, whatever, because like we see with poor Johnny what he had to go through, and he's a celebrity.
And it's not to say that women don't face a bigger battle with this. So let's think of like the R. Kelly thing. Look how long it took to put this dude away.
And everybody just knew. It was just quietly known that he was, abusing, literally raping underage women because they were underage. And he had like his own little harem living in his
That's scary shit right there. That whole situation, like
separating them from their families. There are still, I think, 2 women that he has his grips on from prison.
And in defense, there were still certain media outlets trying to defend R. Kelly, saying these women were gold diggers, they're lying.
And that's how it was early on, especially in the early 2000s. Yeah. They were saying, look at, this is R. Kelly. Look at how much money he's making.
Is like,
these women are just throwing themselves at
For
him.
me personally, I remember in the 90s when
Aaliyah.
Well, I was getting to that, but the other girl for Harvey Weinstein, from Scream, I can't remember her name all of a sudden. Shit.
Drew Barrymore?
No. Well, she was in the movie, but the other one, she's the one who got raped by Weinstein.
I don't know which one that is. Is it Neve Campbell?
Nope. It's the other one. Her friends. Yep. It's so bad.
Courtney Cox?
Nope. Give me a minute here.
I'm going down the Scream.
It's so bad because like I talk about her like a lot.
Let me tell you something though. I remember Courtney Love she was being interviewed somewhere, and I don't even know how this came out, but she said something, and this is before all came out about Harvey Weinstein. She was like, he is a bad person. I will never work with him. And it was because it was kept so quiet for so long. It was known, but they just kept it quiet. Like everybody knew when Harvey asked you to go up to his suite that it was you're blowing him kind of thing. But Courtney Love, you know how she is. She's crazy. So she just like, and this is like live while I think it was an awards show. They were asking about something, and somehow Harvey Weinstein came up, and she was like, I'll never work with him. He is a horrible person. And
Rose McGowan is the one I'm thinking.
Rose, I love her. And yeah,
But at the time, like she settled, but she had the clause in that where she said that she can still talk about it, which is kind of interesting that Harvey allowed it. But I think Harvey thought he can get away with it because no one else was coming forward at the time.
And look what it did with
But
her
think about
career. Think of how many things that she didn't get.
Well, it affected a lot of women. So Asia Argento is one of them. She didn't even tell her dad till many years later, which we saw a doc. I caught some of it where she was talking about she did the Stenarol syndrome or whatever, which was her dad's film. And in that film, I always thought it was weird because it was shortly after the incidents with Harvey that she was portraying a victim of rape and actually going through scenes of rape, which I thought, man, that had to be like really fucking tough. But she didn't say anything to her dad until many years later. Her dad was pissed. Same with Paul Sorvino. Mira Sorvino went through the same shit, and then when he found out, he was pretty angry. So I think
It's like
Harvey's lucky that
women,
guys didn't just come up and start beating the shit out.
Yeah,
of him.
these women didn't, because they
Well,
had
there's this thing of guilt.
they didn't want to make
shame.
they didn't want to make their fathers upset.
Right.
You know, they're like, oh, I'm going to blow up my dad's world by telling
But
them
this is
that.
the other thing too. What that goes along with this is that people who were friends of Harvey would try to cover this up. And so even if guys like Quentin Tarantino didn't necessarily endorse it, he never did anything to really stand up to it either. And so that's part of the problem. I mean,
and then you also kind of, I want to be careful about that.
Right.
You don't know who knew what.
Right. So
you really don't know who knew what, because a lot of this stuff came after when the stories started coming out, and then they started coming out in droves.
But I think part of the problem was like Uma, she's the one that I think she talked to Quentin at one point about it. And I don't remember how the discussion went, but I think Quentin was like, I feel really bad about this, but I think maybe in the back of his mind, he's doing what you're saying. Just wasn't sure how true it was. But the funny thing is, when you have a guy like that and with so many women, and it's just weird that like, either it just was something people didn't want to address, because I think they talked about, in docs and stuff about how there was
he's
rumors.
A powerful person, and it's like,
and that's where the power play probably works.
They didn't want to address it because they're like, how true is this? Number one, and if it's not true, he could make my life a living hell, even if it is true. What he did,
blackballed Mira. She was supposed to be in the Lord of the Rings. That didn't happen because of that. I think Uma got shunned a little bit after like what happened with her. I think it was during the Kill Bill stuff. But anyway, that's part of the thing. Like, you have these sides, and it's not just like, Taylor and them trying to protect or trying to correlate what happened with Amber and Johnny with every other domestic abuse victim. That's not how it goes. You don't do that. Each one is its own thing. But even with like Harvey Weinstein, like I said, there were still people out there that were shifting, any kind of like rumor and saying, no, that didn't happen. They just had consensual sex, whatever.
That was the big thing. That was the big thing. It was because they were like, oh no, it was consensual. She offered to do it because, she wanted the job.
But here's the thing, even when it comes to like mainstream media, so, CNN got busted at one point for making up stories about Trump and stuff like back after he first won the election in 2016, and they got in trouble for it. They had to fire 2 employees who made up stories about something without doing their fact checking. You and I talked about the I'm drawing a blank now because what we were talking about. That sucks.
What are you talking about?
God damn, it was just in my head. Now it's gone.
We were really old today.
Yes,
Remember we were talking about we're old, but we're not old. We're kind of old right now.
Right. Well, but we see it in the mainstream all the time, though, where they just it's fake news, and that's where Trump basically got it, because there was just a lot of misinformation going around.
Because they wanted,
I know what it was. It was the lacrosse boys.
The Duke lacrosse, the UVA.
Yeah, so you got a lot of stuff there that when it's done wrong in the wrong way, and you're not really doing you're not crossing your T's and dotting your I's.
And they're not gonna. And even if you do retract it, which they won't anyway,
it still hurts them.
It still hurts them because as soon as you Google like Duke lacrosse, it still comes up like the whole rape thing. And I mean, first of all, they're college boys and they're stupid, and they did not rape the stripper even said that I was not raped, but the whole time while they were going through the trial, they were acting like college boys, and the coach actually had to say, "You guys have got to just go away and be quiet
Yeah.
until this is done," because they were like texting each other and like trying to make jokes out of it, which is what college boys do, and it's not the right thing to do while you're going through a trial where potentially all of those guys could have gone to jail for a rape.
But that's what's happening because,
Mhm.
like, the one student, not too long ago who was accused of being racist against Native Americans, turns out he was being set up and that, like, he wasn't actually being racist, so he was able to sue either the Post or somebody, um, and they won because they lied about him, and so we saw the thing with the Kansas City Chief kid,
Yeah, and that can be so hurtful for you. And again,
especially young kids. So this young kid
I mean, what was he,
who's a
8?
Chiefs fan, yeah, and he's got Native American blood in him. Now you wouldn't really tell because he looks pretty white, but we all know that like I have different types of like, culture in me, Irish and etc. May not look it, but reality is they, Deadspin had called him a racist and said his parents should have not allowed him to wear the headdress and what they thought was blackface, even though they knew his face was painted both black and red, which is the colors of the Chiefs. So now the father and son is actually suing Deadspin. I hope they win because this is just stuff that it still lasts. Like it's like anything else. I think there's certain buzzwords. If like for men, if you say the rape word, that does a lot of damage.
Rape, abuse, anything like that, it gets stuck to your name
It's one thing to
forever.
say that this guy's just an asshole.
Mhm.
When you say that they're a rapist, that doesn't go away. Even if you correct it, it doesn't go away. So even some people who don't really believe Johnny Depp, they're still thinking of him as an abuser. Now, luckily, most of society is smart and they
And
use it.
Johnny has such a high visibility profile that
Well, yeah, yeah, and that helps. But I think it's more just more people in the world have critical thinking, and that's what I like because we have to have that in a time now when the mainstream media and people like Lorenz and them that are columnists are trying to shift and make money off of telling lies or not giving you the incomplete story. And so that's the problem. And so I have a piece of video where Lorenz is kind of talking about how some of the people at the Post are getting let go and that journalism is dying. But the problem here is that her take is that she's part of the problem, and she doesn't think it. Obviously, she'll double down, but she's part of the reason why people are mistrusting the media. So let's take a look
all
at
right, let's
this.
watch this.
Of journalists losing their jobs in situations like this are the working journalists that are doing these investigations of police brutality or investigating corporations or holding power to account or doing really thoughtful, brilliant cultural commentary.
You know, guys, there are a lot of injustices in this world. Oftentimes, it seems like good people are dealt bad hands, while simultaneously, jerks out there seem to just keep on winning. And so, personally, I am not above celebrating when bad things do happen to bad people. I'm not saying it makes me a good person to do that. I'm just saying
No, I
that,
agree
in
with you.
effect, is what happens. And that's certainly what's happening now. If you've been seeing the headlines, you'll know that a lot of leftist mainstream media publications, and I know that's redundant.
I mean, clearly, I'm one of those people that if you're somebody who's done bad things, uh, like, and something bad happens to you, I don't wish anything bad to happen to people, but if it does,
You don't feel sorry for them.
right? Like, some people say, well, that's not really good to be a human being like that. But I'm like, yeah, but look at the crimes. Like, we do this even now with when a criminal does something. So let's say law enforcement gets into an altercation with a black person, but this black person was like trying to grab the cop's gun or was being pulled over for speeding or whatever it is. Like the whole situation went to shit fast.
Mhm.
It doesn't necessarily mean that there aren't bad cops out there, but at the same time, when we have these incidents and somebody's doing something, like if the
You
cop has
just
been
start
shot.
labeling the cop as a bad person.
Yeah, but think about it. If the person who's being pulled over doesn't want to cooperate, because technically all you have to do is take your ticket and go home. Now, a lot of times these guys have warrants, so it goes beyond that. But
Oh yeah, that's
trust me,
true.
though, I've been on that end. I've been with a gun in my face from a cop, but I guess what? I'm still here, and there's reasons why. And it's not because I'm white. But if the guy had gotten a gun from a cop and shot him, do we think Black Lives Matter is really going to come out and feel sorry for the cop? No,
Mm-mm.
they're going to come out and they're going to laugh about it. Now,
They're
not all of them. There's some in the Black Lives Matter movement that are actually genuine.
So we gotta put a pin in that. Or there is a Black Lives Matter organization, and there are problems with that organization, and we can talk about that down the road. Mainly because there's a lot of money that has been like
it's a lot of unpacking.
misappropriated, but there are true people who, like, we believe Black Lives Matter, but we are not associated with the Black Lives Matter organization. And I hate the fact that something as simple as saying, like, Black Lives Matter had turned into this whole, like, nonprofit that is kind of shady when people are really trying to make awareness of, like,
trying to do good.
So I just want to put that out there, because yes, we are not saying we Black Lives Matter the organization. We're just saying, like, we don't want black people to die.
My bottom point about this is, when I got pulled over, whenever I got pulled over by a cop, or whenever I had that gun pulled on me, there's a reason for it, and the reason is it's my fault.
I mean, the one time it wasn't, though, because it was your roommate who stole all that shit, and
that was different.
They busted into his house, and they're like,
Well,
"Where's so and so?" And he's like, "I don't know." And his roommate had robbed someplace and had given him money, because, like, his roommate was renting from him, and so his roommate gave him the money, and then the cop's like, "That's stolen money," because he was just like, "Wait a minute. I guess that makes sense how this dude just came up with $500 when he owed me, back
But
rent."
see, you can still blame me for choosing
A bad roommate.
right. So, but I don't blame the cops. They're doing their job.
But it was still scary, right?
Right. But I'm alive because
you're
of how
alive
I
because you
reacted
didn't- you
to it. If I would have even tried to, if I didn't put my hands up and I tried to, like, swing around and grab his gun, like, I'd be dead. That's what happens when you're a jackass.
You just froze and said, "Officer."
Yeah, and I was scared shitless.
Don't know what's going on. I'm sorry.
So it's how you react to these incidents is how it's going to play out. So if you're going to battle with a cop, whether you have a warrant or not, I had warrants. I got arrested for warrants a couple times, and it's like, it's because of me.
Because he's a bad
I didn't pay my
boy.
insurance. Car insurance. I didn't pay for tickets.
So
guess what? I have a warrant for my arrest.
Children, just take this advice from DJ Neko and DJ Anubis. Pay your car insurance and pay your tickets, or they'll suspend your license. And then when you're driving and they run your plates and see that your license
Our
is
nephew
suspended,
is going through some shit right now because he did not pay tickets.
it will catch up with you. They
Yes.
will take your license, they will take your registration, and then you'll be driving on a suspended license, which is a far worse crime.
But at the end of the fucking day, man,
He didn't
live
die.
to see another day.
He didn't die, right? He was
better
in
to
trouble.
be in jail than be dead. Let me tell you.
He got his shit straightened out. This is 30 years ago, 40 years ago almost.
Yeah.
So he didn't die. He got his shit straight. He
I
paid
was not
his
a perfect
fine.
kid. Trust me.
He paid his fines. It's not the end of the world to have a situation like that. So don't fight the cops. Just
leftist
like he
and
said,
mainstream media, but a lot of them have been implementing layoffs of their staff. And while most of the internet has been celebrating
pause
the
that real
impending
fast.
collapse of
I'm wondering, why are they saying they're being laid off because they're left leaning, or are they being laid off because they're just not making money? They might not be making money.
Could be a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Like, if you start losing, I mean, I haven't really broke it down, so I'm gonna listen to what she says.
Okay, let's keep it going.
But my speculation is, when people start losing faith in you and your reporting, and maybe some of the left leaning stuff is bothering, because, like, people are getting tired of it, man. They just are. Like, when
Can't you just report the news? Like, why do you need to put a
media
spin on
was
it?
first created, it was there for the people. They're supposed to be there for the people. I'm sorry that Taylor Renz is not there for the people. She's there for herself and her own fucking agenda. She's entitled to her own opinions about things. I don't have a problem with
But
that.
she's gonna have to say it's like a commentary or
But
an
when you
op-ed.
start twisting facts and you're ignoring facts to drive home an agenda, you're no longer representing unbiased media.
Exactly.
Now, maybe she considers herself biased, and maybe that's part of the problem. Like, I would fire her on the spot because, like, I'd be like, we're here for the people. I'm not here to have you tell your own stories. Like, I want you to report the facts as they happen and go with that. But you know, a lot of news, like New York Times, Washington Post, we talked about the mainstream media like CNN, Fox, they all have their own agendas.
Mhm.
And so that's a problem. Like, independent news sources are becoming a bigger thing now because they're more reliable. And that's what you want.
Of the corporate press, one person, curiously, has instead chosen to come out and defend them and lament the fact that the LA Times basically is exploding. And that person, of course, is none other than a lol cow, Taylor Lorenz. Yeah, it's been a while since we heard from Taylor Lorenz.
Now, let me give you some backstory on Lorenz here, okay? So at one point, back in 2022, Lorenz published an article about the right-wing Twitter account Libs of TikTok. And she publicized the identity of account owner as Chaya Raychik, an Orthodox Jew who worked in real estate. The problem with that is you are not allowed to dox people on social media. So the woman, I believe, did try to sue her or something, or sue whatever she was with the Post or not. Yeah, she was with the Post. So she came after them. And then of course Lorenz came back and said, well, now I'm being online harassed and crying and witching. But like,
But she started it. I mean, that's not the right attitude to have, but she did start it.
right. Well, that's the thing. You do something like that, of course people are going to call you out on it. I'm not saying there's not trolls out there that live to do this shit. They do it to everybody. Like, anybody who says that Amber Heard was the only one to take trolling is an idiot. Because I know for a fact Johnny Depp on his social media took the same shit. Maybe not at the same level because people understand that Depp really was the victim here because they're smart. But the reality is he still took a lot of shit. And, you know, I don't know whether Lorenz and Tabars think that they're part of that, you know, they're allowed to troll him or not. But the reality is anybody on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, whatever, you can get trolled by anybody. You know, I get trolled occasionally when I make comments on other YouTube channels. It happens. Today it happened to me too. Just because somebody didn't want to bother clarifying what I was saying. But you know, that's just how it is. When someone wants to troll you because they're fucking nimrods, and that's just how it is. But you know, I'm not gonna go online and cry about it. I don't give a fuck. Do what you want to do. But anyway, she was accused of doxing. And then of course, with the Herb and Depp trial, she actually published some shit. So when the YouTubers I was talking to, the law tubers, and they were doing their episodes on the trial,
Yes.
she used some of their content, and she reached out to them to ask them if they could do it. And I remember the guy from Popcorn Planet, Andy, somebody else had tried to do that for the Netflix thing, but she did it to a couple other people and didn't get permission to use their shit. So they came back after her. Like, that's part of the problem. So
If she's going to use it and then she's going to use it against somebody, that she definitely needs to have permission. I mean,
well, this is what it says. It says in June 2022, same year, coverage of Depp Heard trial by YouTube personalities written by Lorenz and published in the Washington Post claimed that two of the YouTubers discussed in the article, Legal Bites and Umbrella Guy, were contacted for comment prior to publication. Both YouTubers denied being contacted by Lorenz, prompting a series of editorial corrections to the article, which eventually included an admission that stealth editing had violated the paper's policy. This is the time when Lorenz actually kind of threw another person under the bus saying, well, it was a miscommunication. But that just tells you a little bit what you're dealing with. Like Lorenz likes to put herself up on this pedestal.
Like she can do no wrong.
Well, like
And her
she's like
opinion
this,
is the
like she's the
most
pillar of
important.
journalism
Mhm.
and columnism,
And
right?
the funny thing is that I don't know anything about her.
Well, you don't want to know.
Like,
anything about
so-
it. Like she's just trash, and it's maybe as a person she's fine, but like as a
reporter, it's just
she's not
subpar.
doing her job right.
Okay.
That's basically what it comes down to.
All right, go ahead.
on this channel, but apparently she is still her usual self and still managing to find herself on the wrong side of every single issue.
The entire journalism industry is basically in a free fall. Today, the Los Angeles Times laid off 115 employees. They wiped out their entire DC bureau in an election year. They laid off pretty much all of their sports teams. They killed their entire tech and business section. They laid off breaking news writers, social media editors. The list goes on. But what's really dark is this is just the latest in months and months and months of layoffs in the media industry. In fact, tens of thousands of journalists have been laid off in the past year.
Here's the thing. I know they're going to be watching this who will say, Lauren, even if you disagree with them, even if you don't like them, it's not right to celebrate someone losing their job, okay? These
Yes, it
people
is.
have rent to pay. They need groceries.
When you are somebody who goes out there in the public media and you're
Oh wait, did she lose her job?
this one?
Not her. No,
Lorenz?
Lorenz.
No, I don't
Oh,
think so. But when you go out of your way and you're destroying people's lives, you deserve to lose your job.
yeah, but I bet
and
you
I will celebrate that.
some of those people that are getting laid off, I bet you they're not even any reporters or
Well,
they're
some of them probably have nothing to do with what Lorenz is talking about, or
Mhm.
anybody. Like it could be like the sports writers. Like maybe they have too many, or maybe they don't need to do it anymore.
and it might go back
Or
to money,
maybe they
like I said.
outsource it. They may
Maybe,
outsource it.
and that happens a lot too. They have a lot of contracted work, but everything revolves around advertising dollars. And if they're not able to sell ads or figure out a way to, you know, the Baltimore Sun is basically dead. I don't even know how the newspaper keeps going, but somebody
Everything's
just
online, man.
well,
Which is funny
but
because
it's fine to have online journalism too.
no, it is.
But something, if there is probably a reason, because
But here's the trick, right? If you probably had it happen to you, it's happened to me a number of times. So if I go looking for an article on Google and I say, okay, I want to read about this, so whether it's Debt Heard, whatever, I pull up on Washington Post or New York Times, guess what happens? It puts up an ad. It
and then
says,
it's
you
like
have to subscribe and pay. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. I can go find the same information somewhere
Mhm.
else. And I'm not trying to say that they shouldn't try to get money, but the reality is when you're battling other news sources that will give me the same information you're going to give, and then I already have questions about your integrity, I'm not going to worry about like buying, why is my thing going all
Fuzzy.
there we go.
Come back. Hey, I'm on top now. Hey.
Uh, There we go.
Is that better? Do you feel better?
Yeah, I feel better.
Okay, you look good.
So yeah, so
okay, so I'll put it to that. That's probably what they're trying to do to get revenue is pay $1 and you can read this article, or subscribe for $12. You get as many articles as you want for free. I know somebody who subscribes to the New York Times only because he wants the crosswords, and you can get the entire back catalog of every New York Times crossword ever done. And he and I used to sit and do the New York Times crossword every day at work, because it was when I was still sailing, and sometimes at midnight and you're just starting your shift, you need a little, and you're thousands of miles away, you need a little something to entertain yourself when you have downtime. So I think you have a good point that maybe their revenue generating is not like the best idea, because if I am looking up a Google article that I can get for free, and then I go to the New York Times and it wants me to spend $1 to read this article.
well, you have that, and then on top of that, like if you're already a company like the New York Times or Washington Post where the integrity is being questioned, no one's going to pay you money. Like it's one thing if they thought you were like the best out there.
I also think they try to pride themselves on having unique articles. So then it's just a numbers game. They're like, okay, if we get 2 billion, that's probably not even accurate, but like 2 billion clicks a month, and we know that we can, even not anybody's going to pay every single time, and we know even if we only get 10% of the people to pay $1, that's still like they're just doing the numbers in their head. Like that, you know, they're looking at their analytics of how many times their sites are visited, and then they're saying, okay, our site has been visited a lot. If we can even get a small 10% fraction to pay that dollar, we're still going to make money.
I'm sure they're getting some income, but
Mhm.
here's the bottom line with that. I said this about it when the two reporters were let go from CNN. People were CNN and people who support CNN were like, well, they're not representative of how trustworthy CNN is because there are a lot of good people there. And maybe that's true. The problem is, once you have cracks in the armor and your integrity is even questioned at all, that the mistrust is there. So it takes you a long time to build that back up. So
You and I have someone that we know who worked for CNN for many years.
right.
Wasn't even a reporter. She was more of like an
And
administrative
they had
type.
certain rules.
They wouldn't let you. She never even posted on social media because she was too afraid that she would break the rules that CNN gave them. She wasn't allowed to sign a petition. She wasn't even allowed to buy Girl Scout cookies because if she was seen purchasing Girl Scout cookies, that means she supports the Girl Scouts of America.
Right.
Like, they were very strict. So if any of these reporters are acting surprised that there's some kind of like rule with CNN, this is a person who her job was to set up all these conferences, to set up when you see the big press that was her job. So it involved a lot of moving pieces. She wasn't a reporter. She was doing things on the backside.
But that's like how it is with the Post now. So Taylor Lorenz is like, I think she's like kind of like
She's with the Post, right?
well, she's a
She's
gun
been
for
with
hire.
yeah, I
So
was
they
gonna say she's
basically,
been with a bunch of like I saw that she was with the Daily Mail for a minute. She's like
yeah,
done some social media type things. So
yeah.
okay.
So she's kind of like a gun for hire, and that's fine. But when you have someone like that who already has some issues, that reflects on you. So
And it does,
surprising the Post is like
she's
still
freelance and
right.
she's
That's what I meant,
writing
freelance.
something
Yeah.
in the Post, she's representing the Post.
Right.
All right,
Yep.
keep going. Sorry.
That's
How
right.
is this going to affect them going forward? It's going to be a really hard time for them. Even if you don't like them, it's not the Christian thing to do to be celebrating something so bad happening to them. And it's like, okay, I'm not saying you're wrong there. However, at the same time, may I remind you all what type of people the journalists over at the LA Times actually are. As people have been sharing online, just a small sampling of previous LA Times articles include things like white drivers are polluting the air breathed by LA's people of color, experts see little evidence that protests spread the coof in US, opinion, unjabbed adults, LA Times readers are infuriated with you, editorial, bring on the crackdown, the unjabbed must be held accountable, children apologize to their dying elders for spreading coof as LA County reels. Larry Elder is the blackface of white supremacy. You've been warned. Are the unjabbed still a danger to the rest of us? And of course, my personal favorite, mocking anti-jabbers coof death is ghoulish, yes, but may be necessary. I'm not trying to be insensitive with this video, but as other people have suggested, is it really wrong to celebrate journalists at the LA Times losing their jobs when really, when you think about it, journalists nowadays aren't really even people? I'm not kidding here. If you begin to feel sorry for any of these folks, just remember that if they had it their way, you would have been fired from
Maybe
your
they need to be
job if you
replaced by
didn't take the
AI.
jab. And I'm also pretty sure we're at the point where, yes, most of these people would absolutely call you a Nazi, call you a fascist, and they would kick you out onto the street if they had the opportunity to do so. And with all that
And to
said,
use
if you still
you for
feel
their own
bad for
agenda.
these journalists losing their jobs, then I applaud you. You are a more empathetic person than I am, but just keep in mind that if the roles were reversed, they would not do the same. They would not extend the same amount of grace toward you. And we have more Tay-Tay to go over, but first I do want to say a big thank you to today's sponsor, Patriot Gold. Did you know that the US
Oh, Sports Illustrated basically shut down last week. Pretty much the entire digital media ecosystem that myself and a lot of other millennial journalists came up in has been completely hollowed out.
Another thing that personally makes me chuckle when it comes to all of the layoffs that are happening in the media is the fact that not only do these journalists, it seems oftentimes, work actively against the interests of the average American, you know, fostering racial division and trying to encourage the implementation
That's what they
of
do. They put
draconian
these
crackdown policies.
stories out
but a
there
lot
to
of legacy
incite division.
Yeah, well, we talked about it. It's like they rather have all the negativity because they want us at each other's throats. But there are good stories out there. We just don't see enough of them. So they figure what's more like it's like it's like the usual thing we talk about. Like if you're driving down a highway and there's an accident on the other side, well, everyone slows down because they want to see the chaos.
Mhm.
And that's how the media works too, even though it's really it does a disservice to the American people because you're promoting these negative things that happen and then they blow up. So even if you have like 2% of the cops in the United States that are bad, corrupt, not fit, it doesn't mean that the rest of them are the same ilk. Now, are there problems when we see sometimes when they're guilty of doing bad things that they're not being held like the standard that a normal person would be? Sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a problem, but that's a different discussion.
And that's happened before too. I mean, we're not saying all cops are like, Boy Scouts and
Right.
we're saying Baltimore is a prime
When you start going
example of
defund the police, that's a problem. And it's already affecting so many states.
it's happening to Baltimore. Baltimore had a lot of crooked cops where it's been going on for years.
Yeah, Baltimore's having a hard time getting
And,
cops.
and Baltimore's having a hard time keeping people in the city. It's so much citizen flight to the
So even if
counties.
you're weeding out the bad guys, like everything that's coming down from all these activists and these movements, like even cops that have been like, I think, was it Minnesota or somewhere? I forget where it was, but like literally entire division just quit, retired, said
That
fuck it.
was after that guy
Yeah, who
got
had like a bad pass or something.
yeah, and the cops got in a lot of trouble. But in Baltimore, they're changing these
How do the
laws.
cops get in trouble though? That's their own choice. Like I thought it was kind of weird because like yeah, okay, this guy had a kind of a bad pass, but it wasn't.
Oh, we're talking about something completely different. That I'm
Oh,
talking about the guy who was walking home, or he got pulled over, and then the cops beat him to death.
oh, yeah, it's
And
definitely different than what I'm talking
yeah,
about. Yeah,
but like Baltimore right now, they're making laws that are more beneficial to criminals because they're like, oh well, minors. Well, it's not even minors anymore. They're laws pertaining to 26 and younger that they shouldn't have to go to jail because their brains are not fully developed yet. Um, it's crazy, but it's all a result of these type of inciting stories that get thrown out there instead of saying, okay, well, we're going to punish people who've done something that's against our laws. They're like, well, we're seeing now that we read these stories, or we have other people who are more left leaning and they're putting out new laws that counteract the old laws. And Baltimore's not a great place to be right now. I'm sorry. I know there's a lot of love for Baltimore, but we're leaving soon. So it's not that
Media
great.
outlets, let's be real, also simply do not provide content that the average person wants to see. These people are not producing value at these jobs. For instance, one
yep.
of the publications that Taylor Lorenz laments the destruction of is Sports Illustrated. May I remind you that this is the same Sports Illustrated that back in the day used to feature covers of healthy young women modeling sexy bikinis or other swimwear, but in the 2020s instead turned to featuring body positive models, i.e. plus size models, as well as elderly
Trans.
models. And let's not forget that despite catering to a largely heterosexual male audience, they also recently chose to feature a biological male on their covers. I mean, is it really a wonder that these people are no longer employed? And that's not me saying this based on any ideological reasons. It's simply the market. If you're trying to
It's
cater
logic.
to straight men and you are offering them, 70-year-olds, fat women, and biological males, yeah, things are probably not going to go great. And she also brings up
Pause that real
BuzzFeed News
fast. I
here,
wanted
which
to
is a
kind
really
of
strange.
piggyback on that because a, a lot of what's happening is, yes, they're trying to get these diversity inclusion things to raise their diversity scores, right? And that's exactly what happened with the whole Dylan Mulvaney thing. So when you look at these new Sports Illustrated models that are not your stereotypical Sports Illustrated swimsuit model, what they're doing is these people who come up with the idea, they just start looking at what's trending, right?
Mhm.
What's trending? Martha Stewart's been trending for a long time. She's going to get us lots of reads, but they're not zeroing in enough to say what's trending in males aged, 25 to 55.
That's
You
an
don't
excellent
want
point.
to. You don't want to look at Martha Stewart. You think she's great, she can cook or whatever, but that's not your target audience. It's exactly what happened to Bud Light. They had that new lady who was in the social media, and they're like, "Holy shit! Look at Dylan Mulvaney. She's got like 1 billion followers. She's definitely going to be great for Bud Light because." But then Bud Light is a very stereotypical male clientele, and they're like, "Excuse me, this is."
The best comparison I can make is let's take Playboy.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, they want to do a transgender person on the cover. It's not to say that transgender people are bad. It's not to say it's transphobic.
It's not speaking to the target audience.
Right,
That's all it is.
You can't take a small percentage of people that would like. There is a market for transgender porn,
or modeling
photos,
or
whatever.
But not.
But
for,
at Playboy,
yeah.
it's majority heterosexual, so you're gonna cater to where it's breading, buttering your bread. So Sports Illustrated, when they did all that shit, they fucked themselves,
and that probably lost them money.
And
that's probably
again,
what
so
happened.
like,
that's exactly what happened.
And the
to
problem
Bud Light.
is,
they just lost a bunch of fucking money because they're just not thinking. They're trying to be too diversity inclusive.
And it's not wrong being inclusive, but the reality is,
it's just
the reality is though, like, of course, when they fail, people are like, "What? The world's just transphobic." That's not the problem. No, it's not transphobia. It's just that people have their own preference. So for years, when you were looking at women on Sports Illustrated, Playboy, Hustler, whatever, you buy those for a specific reason, and mostly it's heterosexual males. Now, obviously, there are gay males that buy Playgirl. So if they went to women all of a sudden, it would be a fucking problem. It would be. Because guys are not going to look at girls.
They want. I mean, you got to.
That's the reality,
think
folks.
About your market,
right?
You have to think about who are your customers, and that's, I think,
something as simple as Metallica, thrash metal for the first few records. Then they went to hard rock, so they gained an audience, sure, but then they lost a lot, and so and they got lucky because there is a big market for rock fans. Mm-hmm. But it isn't the same for like Sports Illustrated or Playboy. You can't get away with that. So again, the media, and part of it's not even all their fault because the media probably puts pressure on these people.
And that's exactly what it is.
To do this because of the woke culture that we live in.
They want them to have these quotas of all these check boxes. Are we being inclusive enough? Do we have someone who's
But I'll tell you this, like, look at Disney, man. Like, they've had failure after failure after failure. And it's not that it's not, credible to try to make a new movie based on inclusivity, mm-hmm. But if you're not reading your audience right, and let's say even if you want to do that, so we talked about before, if you're going to do a movie that has all these different things that you're throwing in, like everything that hits the fan, make sure the story's strong. Mm-hmm. If you make a shitty story and you're built around the woke ideology, it's going to fail. Because nobody wants to go there when they're trying to escape real life and listen to more bullshit that they can get by watching the news. They don't want to do that.
And there's lots of great stories that are out there that
be original. Because that's part of the problem too.
Support like diversity.
Right, like
you don't have to like force it. There's so many great stories about.
You can create one. It's not that hard.
I mean, there's so.
But you're so busy trying to redo everything, man.
There's so many famous Native American people. There's so many things that like we just watched that Children of the Flower Moon.
Yeah, the Killers of the Flower Moon.
Killers of the Flower Moon.
And that was great.
It was, and it's a real story about Native Americans, and they used Native Americans in the story and hired them. You don't have to like make up this whole thing and try to like pigeonhole, and because there's so many great things that you can be writing stories about. For you don't have to say diversity, inclusiveness, etc., because the stories are out there. You don't have to like squeeze it in to force a story. You can make the stories and also make them diverse.
All right. Well, I want to get into our second episode here, our second topic, and basically what we have here is Miskiff is and Mitch Jones as well. They're both gamer streamers, and Miskiff
streamers.
is part of the OTK network with Asmongold, Imaru, S-Fan, and all of them. And now I don't know Mitch Jones that well, but apparently he's pretty big too. Like he has a pretty big following. He's been around for a
Oh,
while,
wow.
but he's also known to be a little bit of a lunatic just in personal life. So, and he's untrustworthy. So some of the videos I saw earlier today, they were talking about how like one guy was like, well, I had a conversation with Mitch and I told him like, don't mention this on your show. And the next day he did that. And so now that guy no longer likes Mitch. He says, I can't trust him, so I don't want to be friends with him. Which makes
you're
sense.
afraid that it's just going to get on YouTube.
Right. Well, and you just can't trust him with that information. So, but Mitch probably knew Miskiff for a while, but something went down where Miskiff and Mitch were at a party, I guess, and Mitch was on alcohol and cocaine, but needed the ride home. And then he and Miskiff were arguing. So, but he asked Miskiff for a ride home, which he did. Now, when he gets at least close to home, it was caught on a Ring camera. I don't know if it was for Mitch's house.
Oh, do you have Ring footage?
Yes.
Oh, we'll my goodness.
But apparently, Mitch was challenging Miskiff, saying, I could beat you up 7 times.
What does that mean?
I don't know. Maybe it was like 7 out of 10. I don't know. They were jibber-jabbing about something.
For what?
I don't know. It's just,
it's
like testosterone, like masculinity. Yeah. These younger guys, like they just, they're train wrecks. Like they can't get out of their way.
Guys like that? Why is it
know.
like?
I never got the thrill.
Like, look how big my balls are.
Like it never made sense to me. I'm a lover, not a fighter. I'll fight if I have to, but I'm a lover.
He is 100%. But it also helps that he's a very tall, strong man. So like that's why it's easy.
Yeah, don't piss me off. I'm a fucking bear. I will fucking kill you.
I'm just thinking about the Reverend.
Raping a bear raping him. Yeah, I'll rape you. I better not say that online. Sorry.
No, he won't rape anyone. He will not rape anyone. We're just joking about.
Some are guys, but never mind. It's a joke.
Oh my god.
Anyway, so they get there, or at least get close enough to his house, and something happens where
ridiculous.
Mitch gets out and goes around and tries to pull Miskiff out of the car while telling him, let's go, let's fight. So Miskiff proceeds to beat his ass. Now, in the ring footage, Mitch does not show the fight itself, but he shows kind of the aftermath. You can actually hear him talking, which is pretty good ring camera. But the logic failure here for Mitch is that I think there was talk he's trying to try to sue Miskiff. Now, this happened months ago, or maybe a year. And initially, Mitch on his stream said he got in a car accident. That's how he explained his bumps and bruises. He apparently got a concussion. He got his tooth knocked out.
Wasn't he the one who was egging him on?
Yes.
Being like, I'll get you 7 out of 10. I'll get you 7 out of 10.
And so now he's going online trying to claim that he's this big victim of Miskiff beating his ass. Now, there are people out there saying that Miskiff shouldn't have done that. But I'm like, dude, if somebody attacks you, especially in Texas, there is something called like the fight law that you're allowed to fight. And technically I think it's a self-defense state too. So I don't think Miskiff carries a gun, but the reality is like,
open carry.
Yeah. So I mean, if someone's attacking you and trying to fight you and you beat their ass, they have no reason to come back and try to sue you about anything. You got your ass kicked. Just take it. Take your L. Go home.
Take the L and go.
But here's some guy talking about this whole
this.
Yeah. So most of it's just like when they're arguing afterwards, like Mitch is on the sidewalk and Miskiff's yelling at him. But
Friendos, today we're reacting to and talking about millionaire streamers on Twitch doing millionaire streamer on Twitch things. As we all know, content creators, for whatever reason, get popular, become multimillionaires, and then can't help but be despicable, weird, predatory, just odd people. My theory for this is
kind of a stretch, but
Twitch, obviously, specifically, not talking about YouTube, where this is also a big problem, but Twitch you have a bunch of nerds, right? I'm not even using that disparagingly because I'm a nerd myself. You have a bunch of nerds who were not particularly popular in high school or, weren't really the most socially well-adjusted people. And then they get famous and rich and get all this ego and all these opportunities and things that they think that they can do as a result of other nerds watching them on Twitch. And they don't know how to handle it. They don't know how to be normal people. So what they end up doing is falling into the pits of, drugs and addiction and just ego and narcissism. And then you get all these stories about how they're all wilding out behind the scenes. Now, Mitch Jones is a World of Warcraft streamer, or at least that's what he was famous for originally. And he's been embroiled in a whole bunch of drama. I think he's in his early 30s now, so you would have thought by this stage he'd have grown up a little bit. But apparently not. And he's part of, the Austin crew. A lot of people that came from the World of Warcraft side of things, Asmongold lives there, Mizkif, it's the whole OTK group. And then Mitch is sort of on the periphery. I don't think he's really part of the main group.
Well, I would assume yes, for a couple of reasons. It's kind of funny because you would think, being who they are, they might live in California. Now, some streamers do, obviously, but you would think, one, the politics out there is pretty crazy, so they would take from the rich to feed the poor. So I think guys like Asmongold, even though he's not really conservative, he's kind of like us. He's kind of like libertarian, but leans left on some things and right on others. But he's rich. So what are you going to do if you want to protect your money? Well, you're going to go where your money is going to be protected. So I think that's part of it. Now maybe he's always lived in Texas. I don't know. I don't know enough about Asmon to that. But when you see them do like their steak and eggs podcasts, like Imaru and Tectone, they're there together. So either they're flying down there all the time each week, which they probably could afford, or they live close. And so I'm assuming when they figured out they were going to do this,
they all kind of relocated together.
Yeah. So I think that's part of it. Like Asmon always talked about how the people that chooses to get into OTK, like you have to build this friendship with and trustworthy stuff. So that's part of it. So once they do, it's like, okay, move your ass out here. You're going to be part of us, yada, yada, yada. And I'm assuming Mitch is out there too because of this. But yeah.
Okay.
Anymore. Again, this is me maybe being a little bit uninformed on the whole dynamic. But obviously there's been times recently, especially with this group, where there has been a bunch of drama about certain members. Now, Mitch has decided he was going to release a video talking about how he'd been assaulted by Mizkif. I don't know who told him this was a good idea. Obviously, if you hear, I've been assaulted by a famous streamer and he broke my tooth and he gave me concussion and he choked me, you're thinking, wow, man, somebody really needs to stop that streamer. So Mizkif needs to be stopped. He seems like a fucking animal on the loose, right? But unfortunately, that's not exactly what happened, right? Otherwise, Mitch Jones would actually get a W here on this one. So he released this video in which he's talking about and showing, the damage of what happened to him, saying that he'd gone to the hospital for a CT scan, all stuff that I don't doubt. I don't doubt he did. But then deceptively, he showed stills and a couple second clips of what it looks like Mizkif, getting out of the car, walking over to him, beating his ass.
I will say, judging by that, it's a nice neighborhood. And it looks like Mizkif, I think I've seen this car before. It's like a Maserati or something. He's got a nice car, so they got money.
And then getting back in the car. And obviously, he's acquired this footage, presumably from somebody's CCTV camera. These big houses in the hills, living extravagantly as you do as a big, extravagant streamer. And he's subtitled this himself. So he's heard what's been said and thought, yeah, this needs to be selectively added to the clip. I didn't release the whole thing, of course. That would probably have made me look bad. So I'll choose which parts I'm going to put in. Then he's heard it and wrote down the sentence, Mizkif, you are drunk and on cocaine. That's Mizkif saying that to him. And obviously within this edited video, he doesn't show the whole thing, which we have here, that still isn't the whole thing, but is.
Well, part of that is, from what I was reading in the comments, is that one, the claim is YouTube will not allow violence on video. Now, I've seen videos where there's some violence and they don't take it down, so I don't know how true it is, but people were making the argument that Mitch would lose monetization if he put any kind of violence on his channel.
That's a very good point. Yeah.
So that's part. The other part was they said, well, if he is going to press charges eventually, because he went to the doctor, he has like he got a CAT scan and everything, which they'll talk about. If you're going to have a legal battle, you're not going to you'll provide that to the lawyer, not to everybody else. So that's the other argument being made.
Is more, which we'll go over in a second. So basically, his presentation of it is, I'm in the right. Mizkif is an out of control crazy man who just beat my ass for no real reason, and I was really drunk, which means he could have killed me, which we'll get to in a second. So his story is they were arguing at Mizkif's house, and then they were arguing so badly that Mitch decided to ask him, will you drive me home? And he said, yeah, I'll do that. And then, apropos of nothing, when they were in the car, got out and beat his ass and left him on the side of the road, beaten, battered, and bruised. But obviously, the footage, as we'll show now, doesn't really line up with that. And again, this is footage he released and has selectively been edited to remove, presumably, where he was actually assaulted, which would have been great context to include if you were, in fact, in the right. If somebody beat
Again, now you may not have the footage, but for those that just heard me talk a minute ago, like this could be for a particular reason. So we have to kind of give Mitch the benefit of the doubt here with that.
Beats you up for no reason and you have the footage of it, you just release the footage, but this is what we got. So he said he could take him, which he's not disagreeing with. He's not saying, no, I didn't. You know, you did this for no reason. He's saying, Miskif saying, you were goading me. You were saying you could take me 7 times. You're drunk and on cocaine. So it's the middle of the day, as you can see here. It's just an average streamer day.
Average streamer day.
So you treated me like shit. You know, I'm your friend. I'm trying to, you know, talk to you as a friend. And you treat me like shit. And then his response is, I don't care, but you broke my tooth. So all about me. Me.
I'm really surprised in that neighborhood that they didn't call the cops.
Yeah, but you know, people can be at work. This could be like it looks like almost like 9 or 10 in the morning. I really don't know, but I'll say this, and this goes back to what I was saying about when Lauren Chen was talking about the other stuff. Like, I don't feel bad when bad things happen to me. So, going by a lot of what I've been hearing about Mitch Jones, he's not a very good dude. He's not trustworthy. He often does this. Now, if he has a substance abuse problem, from what I can tell, most of the time that people talk about, Miska has always tried to help him and befriend him the best way he can, but there's this trust that keeps getting broke.
Now, are they you said that Mitch is part of OTK?
No, he's not in OTK, but he's friends with them.
Okay.
So OTK is their group, but they have a lot of friends in the streamer world that
Okay.
you know they know. And I think Miskiff, because Miskiff's had Mitch on his channel before. I saw some footage of them playing games and stuff, but it sounds like this guy's like got some problems. And whether it's a cry for help or not, it doesn't really give him an excuse to treat people that are trying to help him like ass. And if you're threatening somebody and then you try to pull them out of the car, like he just gave you a ride home. Like, what the fuck are you doing? And some people are arguing that, well, Miskiff's a big dude. He's not a bodybuilder, but he goes to the gym. And he's bigger than Mitch, but people are like, well, Miskiff could have just subdued him until he calmed down. But I'm like, you clearly have not seen people who are on drugs and alcohol, man. Some people have taken shots to the chest and still gotten up and tried to attack people. So it's not to say that Mitch would do that if he was shot, but you don't know how this guy's gonna react. He could do
we're not seeing the actual fight, like what happened after they
right,
like the beginning of them getting out, like how it all started. Because
exactly.
if he was bothering him the whole way and they were fighting in the car, like arguing, when they pulled up really quickly, we didn't see what happened. We didn't see like how they both got out. Maybe Miskiff was probably gonna just be like, "Go to your fucking front door, leave me alone."
Yeah, he was probably like, "Dude, just go to
Mhm.
bed and let me go home." Like that's
So we don't know
probably
how it actually. We don't know what the catalyst was because
right.
he wants to edit it in a way.
But clearly at this
might
point,
have been like pushing on him and
right.
starting
Well,
shit.
apparently they've been arguing the entire time, so it's surprising that Miskiff still brought him home. But that shows you that Miskiff cares. Like he's trying to just take care of a guy he considers a friend. This guy, for whatever reason, Mitch just keeps busting his balls, like challenging him. It's like sooner or later someone's gonna break, dude. And he just taught you a lesson. Now it's unfortunate if you really are hurt the way that you're hurt, like something about his spine, and he still like has concussion issues. And I guess he's trying to argue that because of that incident, like his streams haven't been as strong as they once were. But I'm like, if you had a problem back then, you probably should have taken to, charge him back then. Like, don't come back, months later or whatever to try to do this, especially when you're the one that instigated the entire thing. So it's going to be interesting. Like there hasn't been anything from Mitch that says he's going to sue him, but clearly people are thinking that maybe that's what's going to happen.
Maybe that's what he's trying to do, is
Right.
get enough sympathy.
Right. But he fucked himself when they said he pulled him out of the car.
So you pulled this Miskiff saying to him, and of course Mitch has presented this as if he's the victim, saying that he, Miskiff assaulted him for no reason. You pulled me out of the car, so Mitch pulled Miskiff out of the car and said, "Let's go." And Mitch's response is not, "No, I didn't. You pulled me out of the car. You choked me. You beat me up. I didn't think you would punch me." Now, I might come from a rougher background than some people that obviously have grown up privileged to the point where they think goading somebody, putting hands on somebody, pulling them out of a car and saying, "Let's go," is not going to result in them punching you. Where I grew up, you get about quarter of the way through the sentence and then somebody headbutts you or something like that, on a council estate in a working man's pub or something like that. In England, the idea that you're grabbing another full-grown man while intoxicated, shouting at them, saying that you're going to fight them, and then you're surprised when they hit you, when you are the one being threatening in that situation. Why the fuck did you release this footage? If this was not public, which it wasn't, who's convinced you, mate, other than maybe your brain and your narcissism?
Now, here's the other thing I was thinking about. Not so much from Miskiff, because Miskiff has not really responded to this yet that I know of. But there is talk that, so when I told you about Mitch telling the other guy his when he asked him not to say it online in stream, and he did anyway, part of it might be that Mitch is farming this stuff for views and clicks. So basically, he's monetized.
Right, I see what you're saying.
So he's taking something now. Maybe his streams haven't been as strong. The money's not really coming in. How do I spice up my channel? So now
he's pulling something old out to like get sympathy, get the
get the drama going.
There's the drama. People love drama,
and we're all falling in line because we're all talking about it.
We're falling right for it because we're watching this, going, "Yeah, this is interesting as fuck."
Yeah, and it is interesting, but
even if for us, like, we're not on either side, we're just like dumb bystanders going, what? These are two grown men.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
All right, keep going.
That you would come out looking good from doing this.
So back to the story. I was at his house, we were arguing, and then I asked him for a ride home. I get in his car, we're still arguing, and that's when we drive past this part of the neighborhood where the camera caught the assault. And I have the evidence right here.
He was fucking fine, dude.
That's the evidence he posted originally during this live stream, where he was like, "I'm exposing Miskiff for savagely beating me."
So that was right before the assault. This is directly after the assault.
So
So he doesn't even show when he's pulling him out of the car.
Where's the assault?
If this did happen in the way that you said, you just released the full unedited footage, wouldn't you? Oh, this is before and this is after. Let's skip all the context and all the important part and just have me on the ground after, fucking Uno reverse card. I'm going to fight you. No shit, you just beat my ass. For some odd reason, Mitch Jones intentionally edits the footage down to before and after the assault only. So as we've just seen this part. Now, obviously, this has resulted in a lot of the content creators in the periphery of this group, the people who hang around with Mizkif and, in the Austin area and things like that, to come out and talk about Mitch. And none of it's good. Nobody's come out and said, I know Mitch Jones and I've known him for years and he's actually a really good person. And, he's in the right here and Mizkif did nothing wrong. And it's mostly all been, there's a long history of Mitch Jones basically doing bad things to people and being a, bad person behind the scenes. Maybe not a bad person, but definitely not a good person, not a good friend, not somebody you'd really want to associate with overly in a personal sense. Just somebody who seems to be quite in it for themselves, which... a lot of streamers are, I guess.
Maybe
I mean, a lot of people are in general.
Of people who are pretty popular, so he can continue to grow his popularity.
Well, yeah, and I've talked about it before that, whether it's reaction videos, the gaming stuff I do, the reactions that we do now, we all kind of feed off of each other, and some people don't like it. They think that type of content's not very original. And I could say, well, yeah, sure, on some level, but, you and I, we work day jobs. So it's not like I'm out there, I'm not good enough to do gaming videos. I would do it, but it's boring. Nobody would really pay attention. So it's not worth the time to do that. But I find watching these people, what they do, interesting. So if I do reactions where I want to give my own opinions, it's how I can be heard. It's how you can be heard. So I think these topics are interesting on their own. So you can take Mizkif and Mitch out of it. I could put any two people and say, if that's the same situation, that whoever is instigating the fight is still in the wrong. It doesn't matter who it is. But we all kind of feed off of each other. If someone were to come down the line and use one of our videos, using our piece of our video, I wouldn't care because I'd say that's okay. Yeah, right. It's it's cool. Okay. I'd be flattered if Asmon or DM or Hog used a piece of my footage for something, or anybody. If they thought we made a good point about something and they wanted to use it, I wouldn't care. That's fine. It doesn't bother me.
Alinity
shit like this, right?
And her opinion.
And then months later, he comes to me and he cries and he tells me, Alinity, I don't know what to do. Everybody hates me. I'm depressed. I don't want to live. All this shit to try and gather sympathy or whatever. I just don't get it. I just don't get it. I don't understand these people. I don't fucking understand these people. It's so scary.
So obviously some people are going to say, who cares about what Alinity says? She's done some bad things as well. I don't think one has to necessarily interact with the other in terms of, people can have opinions on others.
Correct.
So obviously maybe this is a concerted effort by everybody within this crew to protect, one of the main protagonists and say, we're all going to stand by Mizkif and say Mitch is the problem and Mitch did all the bad things. And in reality, Mitch is the hero of this story. Maybe in an alternate reality that's the case, but just interacting with it on surface level. If you followed streamer drama, which unfortunately I have for some years, and also just interacted with the facts on this one and what he's released himself, nobody is really going to take his side on this one other than diehard delusional fans who just think, my streamer couldn't possibly do bad things, even though...
Follow streamer drama.
Mass reporting. That's me. Global Unscripted.
So he provably has over time repeatedly. It seems like this dude has a falling out with everyone around him. And if he is a dick...
So yeah, I think that's kind of the basis of that, whole thing. So it's basically Mitch came out, tried to paint it as Mizkif's out of control, just beat him down for no reason. And nothing in the video really validates what Mitch is pushing. Like maybe, maybe the assault is bad enough. Yeah. So you get a concussion out. That's pretty heavy duty shit. But on Miskiff's
He's
defense,
acting like he's innocent.
right. And it's like, you have to be accountable, man. Like you're on alcohol and drugs. No one forced you to take those. And I know addiction is real, but no one's really mentioned that he's addicted to anything.
They just make it sound like he was partying too hard.
Right. And then the girl
being
was
a little bit
saying
of an
that, he
asshole.
was complaining about no one likes him, that he was feeling suicidal. I was like, well, okay, but do you ever take accountability that maybe you're a problem?
Mhm.
You can't just blame everybody else when there's things you're doing that you're not fixing. And if you're assaulting Miskiff in his car or trying to get him to do a fight and then he actually beats your ass when he's tired of your bullshit, maybe just take the out and say, you know what? Maybe he's right. Maybe I deserve this. Maybe this is a wake up call that I need. And so, again, if you're looking at this situation, the logic that Mitch is trying to propose it just fails. And there's no real critical thinking about it. So, yeah. All right. On to number 3.
Oh my gosh.
So,
number 3.
Neko and I are pretty familiar with the Whatever podcast. We watch it occasionally here and there. For those that don't, basically it's a show created by a guy named Brian. And it's the host, Brian, and some of the people he has on there are very conservative Christians. But what he does is he brings on women. It's basically something to talk about dating and how the interaction with men and women works and whatnot. So what he does is he generally brings on like girls who are part of like the porn industry, OnlyFans,
And
feminists.
sometimes I think he purposely tries to like make them feel uncomfortable or shame them.
I love that you said that because that was something I was going to point out. Is that now here's the thing: he's the host, so he can do whatever he wants.
And these people know his podcast, so they come on knowing that they might get put into a corner.
Right now, here's the thing: some of these girls, they are their own worst enemies. Like some of the shit they say is fucked up, and one of the things I'm going to get to in this video is one of those situations. Now, what I will say in defense of the girls is now apparently Brian came out recently and said he's not going to have as many of these girls on anymore because some of them get out of control and they just fuck up the show in some way, like they troll on purpose or they get carry on and get crazy. So maybe he's kind of getting worn out by some of this and he wants to bring maybe some other girls, maybe conservative girls to talk about. I don't know. But to go back to your point about like how he and some of the guys like Andrew treat these girls when they're all very calm about it, Brian and them. They're very good at like arguing with girls without getting like exceptionally mad. Problem with Brian is that
they do like to make them uncomfortable and kind of shame them for
they try to
whatever
get
they're
them to
doing.
rate themselves, and then when they do, they're like trying to be condescending. And okay, again, I kind of get someone why they're doing that, but at the same time, like there was one video, not in this one, that I watched where the first two girls, one was an OnlyFans girl, the other one was a porn star, which is Molly, which we'll be talking about in a minute. So the first girl, as he says to him, like, okay, go ahead and introduce yourselves. So the first girl who's been on the show before, she's like, yeah, I'm so and so, and right now Brian hasn't said it, but we're dating. And so Brian got upset. He didn't like that. He's like, no, we're not. No, we're not. And then Molly, when she introduced herself, she's like, yeah, I'm a born again Christian. And she's a porn star. So then all of a sudden, you know how it is with Christians. They do not like when you fuck with their faith. But this is what I will say. And this is why I call Brian a pussy or snowflake, because he can dish it out,
But he can't take
but he
it.
can't take it.
He
Now
doesn't
he's
want-
entitled.
He doesn't want the joke to be on him. He wants it to be on these girls.
Right.
He wants to get them up there
Right.
so that he can make them feel bad and he can judge them.
Yeah. And look,
that's-
it's his show. He can do whatever he wants. But it doesn't make you look very good when you're poking at these girls throughout how many hours you're doing this shit.
How many years has he been doing,
It's been a couple of years.
Yeah,
but he has a lot of
so-
episodes. They do this like almost daily. And I think they go for like almost 4 or 5 hours sometimes. But
Oh
either,
my God.
yeah, it's crazy. And they always edit it out, whatever they want to use. But I just thought it was funny that those first two girls, which I thought were kind of like innocent little jokes, it wasn't even that something to get that offended by. But dude, he almost lost his shit. He's like, you know, you're just
Not funny to talk about.
yeah. He's like,
issues
it's like you're
that.
just gonna troll. You can leave right now. My pussy's getting sand in it. I can't deal with that right now. Coming from the guy who doesn't like to eat pussy, he won't do it.
What?
Yeah.
Why?
Because he says it's only right that girls go down on him and not reverse.
Excuse me?
Yeah, that's what I said. I said that boy's missing something. You can't call yourself a man not eat pussy. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah. I thought that was the funniest thing when he said that. I was like, are you fucking serious right now? Okay, so to this video that we're going to be watching.
Okay. All right.
So
Zipping back.
Molly Little, cute little blonde. I'm
She's
aware of her. I know who
young.
she is. Yes. So she starts talking about her boyfriend who works in the industry with her. Now
That's probably better.
it does. It works for her. You know, she gets to go bang black guys and stuff, and you know, he gets to bang girls on sets, and they bang each other. But there's a weird dynamic with their relationship. At first I thought, okay, well maybe it's not that big a deal because she feels a little jealousy, but then she says that the jealousy kind of leads to arguments. So what happens is, in her logic, which is a failure, she says it's okay for me to go on screen or on sets and do this with the guys, and even though it's okay for him to do it on sets, I get jealous when he's doing it with other girls, that it leads to arguments.
You can't be like that in the adult industry.
Yeah, and it's so weird because at other times she's stated throughout different podcasts that her boyfriend gets turned on when she's banging other dudes. And that might happen. Okay, figures, okay, they're in the industry, so I'm sure a lot of shit goes on that's crazy, right? But I thought it's so weird that one, you're getting jealous when one, you already know
You're
he's in the
the
industry.
Like,
That's what he
you have
does.
to
So why
be-
would you be jealous? Like she tries to rationalize it by saying it's just a normal reaction from me. I'm like, it's not really normal though, because
No, I mean, it is a normal reaction to feel
Well,
jealousy, but
just because you're
in
in
the
this-
industry, you
right.
have to understand, like, you're doing.
Yeah, there's
things-
almost a point where it's like I feel like she wants to just say to her boyfriend, "I don't want you in the industry."
Yeah, but she's in the industry,
Right.
So,
and
like,
so that's what I'm saying. Like, and in fact, it was funny because apparently he wasn't initially in it until they started dating. Then he got in it. So it's just weird. But let's watch and see what
it's
she's.
what's good for the goose isn't good for the
She
gander.
wants her cake and eat
Exactly.
it too.
Okay, let's watch.
I really think the feelings of possessiveness that come up in relationships is an interesting topic.
Yes.
For example, I have sex with men for a living, and my boyfriend knows that and is okay with that.
Yes.
He even drops me off at their houses.
Yes.
But when he has sex with other girls, I get jealous and start arguments.
Yes.
I only want him to fuck me.
Yes.
I want to know that I have all the attention at all times.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's wrong or hypocritical. It's how I feel.
Yeah.
Maybe you should quit porn then? I don't know. But,
No.
But okay, well, just a couple clarifying things here. So your boyfriend, he does OF2, correct?
Yeah.
And he shoots scenes with women, correct?
Yeah, he started OnlyFans because I do OnlyFans.
Revenge.
I don't think that's revenge.
It sounds exactly.
Sounds like a
it
really
sounds
healthy
exactly
relationship.
Like a tit for tat type
Yeah,
of
I mean, this
situation.
just
It's
sounds
super.
like
I don't think it's revenge so much as he's like, well, as you said, what's good for the goose is good for the gold.
No, it's not good for the gander. So, like, he got into it because she was into it, and she was letting him get into it so that she could get away with doing what she was doing. But then she realized she didn't really like
yeah, but
it.
I think some of her position is, and maybe she'll talk about it later in this. It's only like an 8-minute thing, but I think there's a point where Brian asked her, like, would you consider quitting or something? She's like, no.
Mhm.
And so I'm like,
The reason I'm telling you this, she let him get into OnlyFans
well, see, I don't think that's true because she's saying right now that she really doesn't want him doing it.
because okay.
But I think he did it because he's like, look, if you're gonna fuck other man, I'm coming
No,
in the industry.
this is how it. I'm telling you, because I'm a woman. I know how it works.
Okay, she's got the inner line.
I'm going to give
thinking
you
here,
like the inner workings of a woman's brain.
which is very complicated. It's all this math.
There's math and lines and
Mhm.
stuff. So this chick, before she met her boyfriend, she's doing OnlyFans. She's doing porn, right?
Uh-huh.
She meets a guy that she likes.
Yeah.
and knows that it's really difficult for a man to accept the fact that she's going to be fucking other men.
Right.
So she says to him up front, you should do OnlyFans too, or you should do porn too. There's good money in it. And it's her way of saying, like, I'm giving you permission because you know I already am having sex with other guys. She really didn't want him to do it. She wanted him to say no. That's fine.
Wow, that's probably true.
This is the truth. It is the truth. She really wanted him to say no. I don't need to do that.
Yeah,
And
I think she likes him being a cuck. I think she really does.
So he said, really? Money? Okay, I'm in. I'll join OnlyFans. That's great. Well, now it backfired on her. And she gave him permission, and he's taking that permission. And she told him, yeah, you can do it. But now she's like jealous because she wants to be the one who can fuck whoever and not let him, even though she gave him permission, but she really wasn't giving him permission. She really wanted him to say, no, that's okay. I don't need to do that. So it was kind of like a fake, I'm giving you permission, but he took her up on that permission so that
she opened Pandora's box. He dove right in.
So now she's like, oh my God, he's doing what I'm doing. I really didn't want him to do that because I wanted him all to myself, but I can't take it back because I've already told him he can, and he's making money and doing great, but I don't want to quit my job either because I'm making money and I'm having multiple, OnlyFans partners and porn partners, and I'm making money that way. So I really shouldn't have opened my mouth, but I did, and now I want to tell him to stop, but he's not going to stop because he's making money now, and I already gave him permission. So like, I'm jealous. Now, granted, like we were saying before, jealousy is a very natural, like, feeling.
It is, but it's just I think for me
she didn't really mean to give him permission.
Yeah, it's just weird coming from someone who has no problem like banging.
Because what's good, it's good for her. She wants to get away with it. Yeah,
that's what it comes down.
She wants to get away with it, but only wants him for herself.
Healthy, frustrating arguments.
I mean, once you start going down a path of promiscuity, it's like this relationship is doomed to fail.
But see, I think where the dissonance in our perspectives is that me and my partner know, me and my partner know that sex work is just work.
Sure,
it's
you
not
can say
for
that
the
all you
emotional
want, but
connection.
Obviously, you don't know it's work because you're
insecurities.
starting arguments over him doing his work, which should be fine.
Because
you want
I'm
all the
human.
attention.
You're what?
Because
I'm human, and I'm going to have.
Exactly. So we're saying. Never mind.
Cook. Go.
No, I wanna hear-
You got the
you're
cereal.
going-
Okay,
Ariel,
so
you got it, you got
human
it. Let's go.
biologically, monogamy is natural, right? When
don't
you go
agree with
against
that.
your nature, what does that
It's
cause?
ideal.
A
What do you mean
problem.
you don't agree
then why
That
do you
causes
get
problems.
jealous?
And what does what
Because
do
of my
problems
own
cause? An
insecurity.
unhealthy.
I could argue just real quickly. I don't think cavemen were monogamous. I don't think they were.
No, humans are meant to spread their seed.
Yeah, that's kind of how it is. I mean, obviously, we've learned over time that just mutual respect and having someone to fall in love with.
Yeah, and our
soulmates.
emotions have evolved too.
Right.
So
Doesn't mean there aren't people that are free spirited and like porn stars or whatever and have sex with whoever, but it's not really the norm.
Relationship, and then an unhealthy relationship is what? Barely a relationship.
But what do you mean you don't agree with biological fact?
I mean, I don't agree that monogamy is like the biological end all be all of the most.
It's not end all be
perfect
all.
relationship.
Monogamy is natural. Other stuff. How do you say it correctly?
Absolutely.
Because there are like tribes where like polyamory is how they survive.
That's because
Polygamy, polyamory.
Yeah.
Polygamy, yeah, that is also natural, but humans have shown to naturally be predisposed to pair bond and to be monogamous. So, yeah, that's my.
I know where you were going. You were saying that like what is it? No. Like in like.
I just think the way our society is formed and the way that like most of us has grown up, yes, it seems like it would be the social norm, but I think in the history of the universe, I don't think monogamy was like.
History of the universe.
We're not talking about social norm. We're talking about biology. We're talking about
Jupiter?
history.
No, I think she's talking about in
Dating
terms
on
of.
Jupiter?
No, I think she's talking about like caveman times, right? Like
Well-
you're talking about
No,
like
no,
the
there's-
amount of like you're talking about like repopulation, correct?
No, there's still like even in like.
So you made the point that some tribes in the world practice polygamy,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
Yeah.
Okay, should we really model our society after this
But look, no, those
Primitive
people
tribe.
in
I will say this because I remember you used to watch that show Big Love. And it's interesting about the dynamic. So you were telling me, explaining this to me when you were watching that, how uh Bill Paxton's character, he had 3 wives, at least at one point.
And then he had 4 for a short time.
And but the first one was the main one.
She's
And
the
she
boss.
ran like the little
She
yeah.
was the boss of the other wives.
So there was still some structure there a little bit, because you still had the main 2, and then the rest were kind of just falling in line, even though he got to sleep with whoever he wanted, whatever day.
Oh, they had a schedule. He would
Right.
they each had their own homes, and they would structure it to a point where he was at certain people's homes at certain days. Now, is that real? I don't know. They've got these
I mean,
these
we see it all over the world. There's certain setups like that, but you know, again, it's not the norm. I'm not saying that society is being modeled after,
and
but
honestly, like they do have like those sister wives shows, but they also
right.
show how it in the aftermath it's fallen apart.
Yeah, it can be destructive.
And one thing that was really interesting, you know, there was some like truth in that show was, you know, on those compounds, one of the biggest problems was the older men being forced, or well, the younger children being forced into marriage with older men before they're even like, you know, 13. And
Yeah.
they're being, so that is a problem. And I don't even know if they're going to get into anything like that, but these polygamists, another thing that was interesting is, and they've kind of showed it on the Sister Wives show, is like legally you can only be married to one person, right?
Right.
And there was someone on Big Love one time that said like, I don't care what he does in his personal life as long as he's not doing anything
Illegal.
for like tax fraud
Right.
or you know, social security or welfare fraud, because he legally reported that he had the correct amount of dependents, you know, with his children and his wives. He was only married to one wife. But to your point about the first wife, he was legally married to the first wife.
Yeah.
The other women were just like spiritually married.
Yeah,
to
so I was
him.
just saying though, there's still like somewhat of a structure with that,
But
even though it's not the normal.
at one point, I can't. It's been a while since I've watched the show, but at one point, he wanted to divorce his first wife.
Now would
and
that have made
marry
the second one the
another
lead one?
wife?
Oh wait, so the new wife would have been number 1?
Well, I don't know if in the hierarchy, but
That's what I'm
it was
wondering.
something that it would have been beneficial to marry the other wife for like legal reasons. I forgot what actually even ended up happening, but his first wife, because she was the original wife, she was, you know, she was supposed to die. This is how they started getting into the whole polygamy thing, and the nurse of his wife, who became second wife.
Ah.
And that's how it kind of started. And so when he suggested a divorce, because he's been married to her the whole time,
Right.
when he suggested the divorce, first wife was not pleased.
Well, yeah, no, and that's kind of shitty to do when someone's dying, but
No, he didn't do it while she was dying.
Oh,
This
okay.
is down the road. I'm just giving you some
gotcha.
backstory.
Okay.
Like that's how it started. Like he fell in love.
So just when he was thinking about
Yeah,
it.
he was
Yeah.
thinking about it, and I think it was for the kids, because her kids, like from first wife, were already adult
Grown
age,
up, yeah.
like going to college age. I think it was for the second wife's kids. It would have been better, like tax. Who knows? But it was just like a business, because he owned his own business. He was very, very, and he was like, okay, well, her kids really need to have me associated as the father and it will be better tax wise. You know, you're still going to be, you know, you're still number 1 or whatever. But she got really upset about it. But anyway, this is just an interesting. I like her take. Like she's like, oh no, polygamy is natural and blah blah blah, and to a point it is, but like the way society's structured now, polygamy isn't really natural and acceptable. But that doesn't mean like people don't cheat, and it doesn't mean that people don't get divorced and go to.
Well, and that's why I kind of like, so I don't want to drag, I want to kind of stay on topic.
Okay, go ahead, go back.
Well, no, but it just at times Brian will come out and they try to insinuate that these type of girls are the only ones that will have failed relationships or failed marriages. I'm like, you don't understand, dude. Infidelity happens to even conservative people, like
Oh
a
yeah,
lot.
there are people who on the front
Yeah,
are the
it's
most
this like
conservative
they
and
try to make
Christian
it sound
thing.
like these failed marriages only happen to people that are not living like a normal lifestyle. That's not
Or
really
as a Christian.
exactly, and it happens a lot actually in Christian families.
And it's really funny. The two of us are the most like we're very different than a lot of people. We've had our fun. We've done a lot of things. We are a very non-traditional
I mean, if we
couple.
came out right now and said the key to a happy marriage is no kids, like they'd be so mad.
Or
not these girls over here, but fucking Brian and company.
or
They'd be upset.
if we explain to people like, when I was traveling, I always would say to him like, if you need to go out and do something, do
You
it.
get busy with Captain Han.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
if we understood that sometimes you just want to have sex, but
Well,
like
there was a debate. I can't remember where I saw it. I forgot. Somebody got mad. Oh, so it was just a video, just random shit. So this guy asked this chick, like, if because her boyfriend was next to her, so he says, if you could, if he gave you permission, guilt free, to bang any male celebrity or celebrity you wanted, and would you do it? And she's like, yeah. And then he's like, well, who would it be? And so eventually it was kind of like trying to play off like the boyfriend or like the woman that was commenting on. She's like, that's kind of a shitty thing to do in front of your boyfriend. I'm like, no, because my wife and I do this shit all the time. We're like, if Chris Hemsworth wanted to bang you, I'd be like, do it. Do it.
Ryan Gosling.
Just Margot Robbie, Emma Watson, like I'd be all over it.
But
stink on shit would be the most disgusting thing for them. But hey, I can't get wrapped up in all this stuff. Like the thing is,
I think we're a little bit more honest about it.
we are, and people
to each other and open about like,
Yep.
yeah, there are times I was gone for like 4 months. If I wanted to do something, I would have done it. Like it's not the end of the world because we're together, and it's just like we've just kind of made.
Want an inside joke? I don't want you to fall in love with me. Okay, let's get back to this because we're getting way too deep in that.
In those communities, people still would tend to pair bond with one person.
Yeah, I mean, just because people do it doesn't mean
I
it's
was talking
ideal.
about the first wife thing.
I mean,
well, we're not saying people do it. We're saying it's also natural.
yeah, well, it's unnatural. I would say
it's not.
I would say polygamy is unnatural for humans.
What's natural for humans is to create more children.
Yes. Yeah, and most of those like tribes that you're referring to have what's the term for where it's closed on the woman's side but open on the man's side?
Double standard?
I don't know.
No. But like most of those tribes, like there is a man that has multiple like wives or women.
That's
that
usually
but
like
when
harem?
it's
Are you talking about the harem?
No, like a one-sided open relationship.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
When
but that's the
man-
purpose. It's legitimately for the purpose of repopulation.
Right.
So,
that is natural.
My point.
It's natural, but it's bullshit. That's just an excuse people give. Like, I want to cheat, so you don't.
I'm the man, and I make all the rules.
Right, and so it's kind of funny because, side note, Brian and them often think that a male's body count shouldn't matter at all, whereas a woman's is a big deal. Just to put that out there.
Point is, okay, so yeah, it's natural for a man to desire sex with a lot of partners, but there is my argument. The natural tendency is for society to fall into monogamy and to avoid polygamy.
Well,
I'm glad you asked that. That girl with the hat on, I recently found her name's Madison. So she's been on the show a lot. She hangs around a lot, and I think she probably started out as one of these other girls that came on the show and somehow changed her tune a little bit. So now she's probably more conservative. But I saw a video some time ago. Her dad and mom were on the show, and she revealed her body count to her dad, and it was like 8, which to me is not that high. Now, granted, she was 18, but still, I think, I don't know, maybe we're too old school, but
I think it's that bad, especially like 18. You're in college.
I mean, Molly, she's 21 or 22, and she's had 100 people or more. Even though most of them are in the industry. But
oh, okay, yeah, that's understandable. Like, but 8, she's probably in college, or
right. What, like, but you're still sexually experimenting. You're learning. Some of those sexual accounts probably sucked ass. Like, I know how I was. I was probably bad. But
came to me fully ready and experienced.
well, I was
like
thinking about that the other day. I was like, because oftentimes, these two adults say that respectfully, because I'm sure they're good dudes, but they want the Virgin Mary when they get married. I'm like,
you don't want the crazy girl who's gonna stick a finger up your ass. I mean, like, do
well,
you...
Brian was like, it's a guy's duty to. You're gonna love it. It's a guy's duty to teach and train the woman he's with about sex. He said that. I kid you not.
I was pretty young when you and I got together.
My point of all is like, in my experiences, I've been with a virgin before, and I've been with women that have had sex with partners. I will always take the woman with experience because they have an idea what the fuck they're doing.
And
Actually,
they like, guys don't know what women want. I'm gonna
Right.
say that very honestly. They
Right.
don't. I've had to tell
I mean,
my
look.
partners exactly, like, and I sex is important to me, so I'm never gonna fake it. I'm never gonna be like, oh, you're doing so great. I'm gonna be like, stop. You need to move this way and you need to do this, and then it'll be good. I know that might, like, these two would probably get really offended by that, but if you're going to have an enjoyable experience for both of you, you want to know what you want. And
Right.
I 100% of the time,
It's just funny because when he worded it the way he did it, man, it almost sounded like grooming. And I know he's going to take a major offense to that because that's the term used for other things. But
you're right. It's just kind of like,
but it's like I want
I
to
wanna
mold
teach
her
them.
that she won't want anybody else, and that's the problem. It's like these guys are disillusioned with this idea that if I
If I
create
teach
this woman
them,
to only want me and nobody
that's not
else,
how it works.
it's not real.
Every woman wants something different too. Like, some women like certain things and some women like other things, and I've told you things and you're like, it just blows my mind that when you told me this sexual thing, no other woman has told me this, and I'm like, but that's my, like, how I like it. Other women might like other things, other people have different experiences, but I will never pretend that it's good when it's not. And that's probably made previous partners mad, but he's pretty open about it. I'll be like, no, turn this way or move this way, or I need to readjust. It's not meant to offend, but we both want to have a good time. I bet
Communication's
yeah.
the key.
I bet you these dudes are like, I'm just gonna get on top of this girl, and
that's all they think. Like, they're very, I
and that
consider
doesn't
them
work.
boring lovers. Like, I don't think there's any sign, like, especially if the guy's like, I don't mind if you give me head, but I'm not going down. I'm like, are you fucking serious? Like, you're missing out on some of the best fucking shit. But, like, for Molly, like, so if I was single, I probably wouldn't have a problem with her past. But if I was to actually date her, I'd be like, I can't do it because you're in this industry.
Yeah, you wouldn't get into a relationship with her because it's not what you want.
Right. But, like, if she said, hey, let's fuck, well, okay, that's fine. Just strap on a condom and go to town.
Exactly. I understand where her boyfriend, but I told you, I explained it a few minutes ago. She really didn't want him to get into the industry. She just said it so that she didn't look like it was a double
selfish
standard.
thing.
Yeah.
She wants all of it and none for him.
Agreeing with you, I'm saying even in the communities where polygamy was practiced, people tended to pair bond with one specific person.
Yeah, natural order of things.
I don't. Well, you're talking about natural order in the sense of like civilization.
So let's not have a debate about tribes. I don't think that was her central point. Anyways, we were initially talking about this dynamic with you and your boyfriend, right?
Well, yeah, but she was talking about being human. That's why I brought it up.
Okay, but I think we don't need to linger on.
The point that I'm trying to make is, even though I am secure in the fact that I love my boyfriend and he loves me, and that my job is just work and that his job is just work, it is still inevitable for me, even though I'm like very secure, to feel jealousy because sex is such an intimate thing. And
yeah, I had kind of a what the fuck moment there when she said that. So yeah, sex is an intimate thing.
So it's so intimate you're willing to sell it.
Well, it's not so much that. It's like, it is part of it, but like, there's a couple of things with it. One, if it's so intimate, why are you having sex on camera?
Where you froze it, like
Yeah.
She just said that, and they're like looking at her.
Well,
like,
because they've been catching her contradicting herself, and that's part of my problem. Like, she seems like a really nice girl, but this whole like I've seen her in other conversations where she's doing pretty good. You know, she's saying things that are true. This is one of the ones where I thought she was just like off her fucking rocker. Like her logic just is not correlating very
But
well.
I just gave you the explanation. I gave you the explanation, and she's going to go in circles about this.
Now there are women that will say, and I've read this before with porn actresses, is that they will say when they're with a guy or a girl and like in a relationship that the sex is different than it is on camera. I will say maybe that's true because I've seen docs on the porn industry and how, like, you know, when you're watching a porn and you're seeing the camera angles, you're not always thinking of how they're getting those angles. Now, sometimes a guy will be holding the camera while he's doing something with her. There's literally other times when they had other cameramen.
like
So-
right up their butts. And
Well, one that came to mind, like, so I watched something on Stacey Valentine and her boyfriend Julian at the time. And there was a scene she was doing by the pool, and the guy was behind her, but there was a cameraman right in front of the guy straddling her, got the camera down. So the guy who's banging her is looking at this. He wasn't naked, but he's looking at his crotch. And so I'm like, you know, that's pretty good power to be like in a scene where you're supposed to be like excited, but you're got a dude's crotch in your face. So, but the guy's doing his job. He's shooting the butt, you know, the doggy style scene. So but you don't think about it when you're watching because that's not how they edit it. But so I know that like for her work, like it's not always
it doesn't feel like sex. It
it's not
feels
always
like
extravagant because
work.
they're
Yeah.
stopping, they're going, they're taking
stopping
pictures.
and starting. They're putting you in weird positions. They're
Right.
yeah, totally.
So but it's not that they're not enjoying it either. So because they got to do the climaxes.
They do. You have to have like the finishing move.
The finishing moves.
so to speak.
So I get some of that, but at the same time, it's like if you really felt it was that personal, like you probably wouldn't be in that industry to begin with. But there's another thing. I don't know if it's in this video or not. She says that she doesn't have any other options. Like she could.
How
Like
old is she?
she's only like 20 or 21. But
I mean, but she's got her whole life ahead of her. She's
well,
got-
it's something about school and college because I think Brian asked her that at one point, and she's kind of like, well, if I had those options, like, well, you made some money. Like, she seems to make it sound like she doesn't make any money from this. I know she makes decent enough money from porn because sex sells, but yeah, let's go on.
Okay.
Is it though? Is it because
I think it is.
Bro,
I think
I saw
sex with
your Twitter,
partner
son.
could be
I
an
saw
intimate thing.
your Twitter.
You're intimate
that shit
with
don't look
over
intimate to
100
me.
people?
I completely agree. Sex is the most intimate thing that we can offer another human.
That's a meme in the waking.
But
her boyfriend?
you clearly don't
No.
value it that way.
Oh, maybe it is.
Also,
No, I
didn't
don't
you
think it
say
is.
that if your partner saw you doing your work, that they're insecure?
Yeah.
No, I think if my partner saw me doing, and I'm saying I am insecure. I have moments of insecurity. I'm not saying that I'm not insecure. Like, I'm trying to relay the fact that, like, him and I both have the same insecurities for each other when we do sex work. And I get jealous because
Who's more jealous, you or him?
I think it's me. But in my ideal world, neither of us would have to fuck other people in order
Alright,
to
it's in this
make
video.
money.
She
You don't
starts
have
saying
to.
this.
You don't have to.
You don't have to.
Yeah, you
But
don't
I
have to.
do because it's
don't.
what I like and society provides a
You
job.
That's
like
not a
it,
good-
but you
that's not a
wish
good
you
argument.
weren't
That's
doing
yeah,
it.
that's-
It's not ideal, but you like it.
Yeah.
Wait, you like it, but you wish that you didn't have to do it.
Well,
No, she said that even if she had like a
She
completely
just
different.
said-
No, I
No,
know,
yeah,
I know, but
I
circling back to an
wish
earlier
that-
conversation.
okay, in an ideal world, I wish our society was placed in a way where I
Could fuck a bunch of men. Your boyfriend couldn't.
Was
live
not
happily
offered
ever
that-
after.
You want to live in a society like that?
Sorry. Go ahead. Finish your thing.
My brain hurts.
Oh my god. I would rather live in a society.
Don't care
Now,
if it's
notice
wrong
that real
or
quick.
hypocritical.
Oops, I fucked up there.
In there, but
Notice where Brian was like cracking a joke on her. Now, this is the same girl that, like, in another video said she was a born again Christian and he got all butthurt about
Which
it.
one?
Molly.
Oh, she said she was a born again Christian.
Right.
Oh.
Because he was asking them at the beginning to introduce themselves so that people knew who were watching who they were. So they were just having fun. And the other girl before said that they were dating and he got offended by that too. So I'm just showing you that, like, they don't have any problems cracking jokes on these girls because no matter if they agree or disagree with their lifestyles, they're doing it all the time. And even in their thumbnails for their videos, they're always like, this girl's triggered, or Brian cooked this chick. You know, it's like, come on, dude. If you're dishing it out, you can take it.
You're actively contributing to the moral decay of society.
I do realize that.
So, I mean, there are a lot of evil people in history.
But I don't think that sex work necessarily is the ultimate moral decay of society.
Wait, okay.
But it largely contributes to it.
I think what contributes to it is the consumers, not the sex workers.
Okay, we can continue.
Mary Magdalene was a whore.
We keep veering off of the central point here. We can, if you want, you can bring it back to sex work is bad. Yes, okay, we get it. However, let's try to hone in on the relationship dynamic here that you have. When it comes to Yale, I'd be happy to write you a letter of recommendation.
Oh, thank you very much.
In any case, okay.
See, I would love to see her take him up on that. Like, look, if she really wants to do something else, there's an option right there. Like, literally, if she's really true about that, and she really cares about her boyfriend, like she says, and she doesn't want him banging other girls, get out of the industry. So many times, I see some of these actresses that do this shit, and then years later, and this is the thing that pisses me off a lot, years later, they come out and they say, oh, porn ruined me. And I'm like, yeah, but you're saying that now that you're no longer the hot thing. Like, you've made all your money, you've been famous. Now that you're no longer the young face, because it's like anything else, even in Hollywood, younger people come along, they start taking over, the older people are weeded out. And it's the same for them. But like, don't complain about an industry that you used and bankrolled for an entire decade.
I also think the payout nowadays is not what it used to be because porn is so readily available.
That too, like there is a lot. It's like music now with the internet. There's a lot more out there.
I could think of like 10 free porn sites right now where
yeah.
Like before early age of the internet, it was, you know, more you had to join and pay money, or you had to go and buy your porn DVDs or your VHSs, or buy your magazine.
I got some classic VHSs.
He's got Full Bush Part 1 and Part 2. Like
your boyfriend. So he drops you off at their houses.
Sometimes, yeah, he does.
So you're about to go get that. I don't know. Like as a guy,
I'm about to go pay for our dinner.
Oh, did he drive you here? I'm like,
you can't pay for the dinner.
Head around how I would feel like I'm driving my girl to the shoot.
Yeah.
And I'm like, does he kiss you goodbye as you're leaving?
He does.
All right, love you, babe. Have a good day at work.
Yeah. Like, do you want to marry this guy?
Potentially.
Ooh. I just like.
That's not gonna happen.
I don't think you do.
Why not?
Why
does what I have to do for work?
Well, all of your actions.
I'll say this too, like when I told you about the Stacey Valentine Julian thing. So they were that started out kind of the same way. Stacey had met Julian. He's a sharp looking dude, hung like a tree trunk. It then got him in porn, and as problems arose, which is kind of funny because the thing that kind of led to their breakup was they were doing a scene and he got upset because she started fucking the other dude first. It was a 2 guys on 1 girl thing.
Oh.
So it was a bit of jealousy on screen. But then when they broke up, he went and started, dating other porn stars or whatever. And, that's the thing about the industry itself. And we say that about Hollywood too, like with Brad Pitt when he was with Jennifer Aniston, he met Angelina Jolie, and that played out the way it did. It's not the most healthiest way to have a marriage. Like, I think if you're just going to date, or like, I know some people do succeed in the industry, but they're usually like when they turn to directors and stuff, that it's usually fine at that
And
point.
also it really, if you keep your private life private, look at
and it depends how open they are, because if they're married but they're continually swinging, then they don't care. Like there's not that dilemma.
Are working against that goal.
But okay, what is what I do for work working against my goal of marriage? Like, I don't understand why that is.
Because you just said it builds insecurity for both of
and
you.
It creates arguments in your
It
relationship.
creates tension. It creates insecurity.
For sure,
You're sharing stuff that is
for sure.
key
And
to who
this
you're
early in a
trying to-
relationship, it's early in
sex
a
is
relationship
intimate to
because
a
she's young.
relationship, and if
Yeah.
you're sharing that with other
It's
people,
supposed to
then
be
it
the
creates
honeymoon
intimacies with
phase,
these
as
other
they call
people.
it. Nothing ever get you down. Even if you have a little tiny argument, you're immediately having sex and making up. It's just early parts of the relationship should never be that hard. I was speaking to a coworker and he really likes his girlfriend and they've been together for about a year, but always it's so much stress. And I'm like, dude, you guys have barely been together a year, right? And you're having this much trouble right now. What This is not when it's supposed to be difficult at all.
Well, it's never easy. We have a friend, mutual friend, that was dating for 8 years, and then she found out he was cheating. So it's imperfect, no matter which way it is. But yeah,
early on, you're never.
Most marriages now don't even last a couple of years before they're done, and so and then she's in an industry where you're around sex and guys and gals all the time. So yeah, I think you really hit it on early on when it's like she just wants him to be the guy that sits at home waiting for her while she gets to have all her fun, and he doesn't get to do that. Like that's just it's not. It's not so much jealousy. I just think it's selfish. Like it's incredibly selfish. Oh shit! That's all we needed anyway. That's all it really was. Want to wrap this up. But yeah, I just wanted to point out that there are other times that Molly has been on there. She was on there quite a few times throughout the
I
last.
might have to watch a couple of her do that after this.
Couple of
the whatevers. Yeah, I'd like to watch a couple of her scenes. I mean, she's gorgeous, but
she is a pretty gal. But like that particular thing, I was like, man, I don't know, man. Like you both are in the industry and you both know what's at stake in terms of how you go to work. Yeah, you really shouldn't be getting jealous, even if it's a natural emotion. Like, there's really no reason to be jealous, like, unless you really don't want him to be in there. So
I honestly think too, just my 2 cents is she really she doesn't want to give up the industry because for her age, you said 2021, she's probably getting big paychecks every month. If she does so many, and it's easier to do a ton of movies now in a month than it used to be. There's no film or anything anymore. You could just
everything's online. You have
go.
websites.
It's all online.
Yeah.
You can do the short ones are even better. They don't even make any sense. They're not even making like the old school here comes the repairman, let me hammer you kind of thing. It's not like that anymore. It's just like boom, we have a 5-minute video and you put a bunch of those up. Now she's got her OnlyFans. She's probably got a Patreon. She probably has a nice bulk of money at the end of the month that she gets from multiple
I'll
things.
say this, like if she thinks that she doesn't have a realistic chance at school or college or anything, I can guarantee she has a nicer house than we do. I can guarantee it.
But I also think now she's, and I've never been in the industry, but I think it's easier to do it when you're younger like her and then maybe quit in a couple of years and go do something else.
If she's smart.
Because if she continues with it,
it's going to burn her out.
It's going to burn her out.
Tell you, some of these chicks, after a while, they get ragged. Like, now, granted, I know, like Nina Hartley, who was a young starlet back in the 70s and 80s, she still does it as a mature woman. So clearly, she likes the industry that much. Like, she's fine with it. Like, she's always come to terms with who she is, and she's a confident woman or whatever. So some women, I think, are definitely built for this industry. Like they just either turn to directing or they just like it that much. So, or some other ones I've seen say, okay, I've left. And then 2 years later, like the money they were getting is not as good. So they go back. And by that point, they have like a husband and kids, and it's really weird. And so, like,
and you just put the nail on the head. She's very young. Everything's out there and available.
And I would say, like, okay, if you've got money,
now, maybe her kids are going to start on the internet and
start thinking about the future. Go to college.
Start looking up.
But you got to look at life after this.
It's hard too when you're so young. You're so short-sighted.
Yeah,
I was young 20 years ago. I was short-sighted.
She's short-sighted. She married me.
No, it's not what I mean. I just, I did not. There are things I would have done differently, or if I would have known about them when I was younger or knew about these options, I would have gladly done them earlier on in my life. But you end up being short-sighted. Like, you just kind of stick with things because they're there.
Yeah.
Right? You know what I mean? Anyway, I hope she is happy more than anything. And but my final thoughts, honestly, these are like what we're watching right now. The whatever podcast.
Yeah, I
These
flip
are
around.
like
Sometimes it
hours.
frustrates me because, like I said, it's not like Brian and company are like, always good dudes. Like I find a lot of problems with some of their logic as well. But
But
in this
these
particular
are these
case,
are our modern day talk shows.
yeah. So coming up on the channel next Wednesday, Mr. Lambert and I are doing the Cinematic Synergy where we will be reviewing Studio 666.
Watch it. Watch it. It's so good.
And then the following on the 21st, let me see real quick what was going on that day. So the 21st, Mr. Samurai Lambert and I are reviewing First Blood. OG. And then on the 22nd, I'll be joining Samurai again, maybe some other guests, I think, that night for Versus. We'll be talking about Transporter versus The Beekeeper. So both Jason Statham movies we'll be discussing. And then that Friday, the 23rd, busy week, Neko and I will be joining Mr. Lambert on his channel, the Entertainment Headquarters, to review the Monarch series on Apple Plus. So we got a lot of cool things coming up.
And then we're gonna just be, sporadically jumping in like we did today.
Yeah, we'll have various things that pop up. Of course, the best albums of the week I'll continue to put out there. Some really good ones coming. I got new stuff from Chelsea Wolfe, My Dying Bride, Deathless, Morbid Saint, Massacre, The Meads of Asphodel. New stuff from them. So I'll be checking those out through the next few days and then have them ready to go. And thank you all for checking out this episode of Global Unscripted. And many thanks to
Global Unscripted.
Yeah. Many thanks to Lauren Chen, Buster Live, and the Whatever Podcast for providing the material for us to discuss. It's been interesting.
Yes.
And we will see you next time on the Metal Time Radio Podcast. Keep it real. Peace.